Today, we're looking at something pretty interesting in the film world. It's generated a lot of buzz.
Yeah, definitely. We're diving into the Hollywood Reporter's review of Shelby Oaks, the debut feature film from Chris Stuckmann, the prominent YouTuber movie critic.
Right. And this isn't just like a standard movie review breakdown. It's really about that transition, isn't it? Going from analyzing films to actually, well, making one.
Exactly. And the stakes feel pretty high here. I mean, you've got Mike Flanagan involved as an executive producer.
Yeah, Flanagan's name carries weight in horror.
Hmm.
So the film itself, it was pitched as a mix of mockumentary and found footage, which is, very current.
Very current. But the review, it sets up this immediate tension. It actually says Stuckmann created an effectively eerie and intriguing setup. So sounds good initially.
It does. The premise, the structure, seems like it started strong, but that praise kind of evaporates quickly in the review. Well, it pivots fast. The reviewer calls the film clunky and heavily derivative.
Ouch. Especially for a critic, right? That raises the big question the review seems to wrestle with. Where does homage stop and just, well, copying begin? Especially when you know so much about film.
Precisely. That paradox, the expert critic may be tripping up on their own creative work.
Yeah.
That's really the heart of our deep dive today.
Okay, so let's start with that setup. How did the film initially pull the audience in?
So the review explains Shelby Oaks kicks off like an unsolved mystery documentary. Think, those true crime shows on Netflix or Hulu.
Right, a format everyone knows. It feels familiar.
Totally. And the plot centers on this missing YouTuber, Riley, played by Sarah Dern. She did supernatural investigation videos.
Okay.
And she disappears investigating the namesake town, Shelby Oaks. It's described as this abandoned, wooded area in rural Ohio.
Sounds creepy enough. Standard setup.
Yeah, pretty standard, but seemingly effective at first. The backstory is chilling Riley's ghost hunting crew, found brutally murdered in a cabin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And her last footage, naturally, has those mysterious forms being all fuzzy in the background. It's ticking the found footage boxes.
Got it. So it's leaning into that modern ghost story vibe.
Exactly. And the review notes the initial documentary style, the pacing, the interviews. It felt competent. It features Riley's sister, Mia, played by Camille Sullivan, being interviewed like a decade later. Still searching.
So an emotional core there with the sister.
Right. Gives the mystery some grounding. And the source does contextualize this, reminding us it's been, 26 years since the Blair Witch Project really blew up the genre?
Yeah, hard to believe it's been that long.
Though it does mention Cannibal Holocaust from 1980 as maybe the real starting point. So Stuckmann's playing in a well-established sandbox here.
Okay, established sandbox, competent setup, but you said it falls apart. What happens?
Well, the review highlights this this turning point. It calls it a gnarly incident that happens while the documentary crew is supposedly filming Mia.
A gnarly incident. Okay.
And then, this is what the review really focuses on. Stuckmann makes this really abrupt change. It says he violently shifts gears.
Violently shifts gears. So what does that mean in terms of the film?
It means the whole documentary framework. Gone. Just dropped completely. The very thing that made the start intriguing.
Huh. That's a choice. But wait, aren't sudden shifts sometimes used in horror to, deliberately throw off the audience?
Sure, they can be.
Yeah.
But the criticism here suggests it wasn't really an artistic choice for disorientation. It felt more like abandoning the one part that was working well.
Okay. So the structure that was drawing people in just vanishes. And what replaces it?
Something much more conventional, apparently. It becomes a solo quest with Mia, who's now traumatized by whatever that incident was, searching for answers on her own.
So it goes from this sort of procedural feel to just a straight character horror journey.
Pretty much. And this is where the review really starts to get critical about the style. It says the film then tries to adopt this eerily elegant, off-kilter horror style codified by 2018's Hereditary. But the review calls it a shallow attempt.
Ooh, comparing it to Hereditary and calling it shallow, that's rough.
Yeah. The implication is once the documentary angle was gone, the film lost its own identity and just started borrowing heavily. The review says after this shift, it gets clunkier and way more derivative.
And not just the style, but fundamentals, too.
Right. Dialogue called stilted and generic. World building apparently feels underdeveloped.
So the core storytelling starts to wobble.
Exactly. The reviewer basically paints a picture of a dedicated film nerd clumsily stitching together things he enjoyed watching, Less an original vision, more a collection.
Okay, so let's talk about that collection. What specific things did the reviewer point to as feeling borrowed or, like pastiche?
Oh, the review lists quite a few. It really breaks down the influences.
Like what?
Well, there's a character played by Robin Bartlett, described as a sort of witchy older woman. The review says she strongly evokes Anne Dowd in Hereditary.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that type.
And even Ruth Gordon in Rosemary's Baby. But apparently without adding anything new to that kind of archetype.
So familiar character, familiar performance style. What else?
Like the location. There's a creepy prison setting. Lots of clanking and moaning sounds.
Standard horror setting.
Sure, but the review connects it directly to the vibe of Session 9, that psychological horror film. And even compares it to the old MTV show Fear and myriad video games.
Wow, so not just films, but TV and games, too. It felt that familiar.
That's the implication. It wasn't just using a prison. It was using the feeling of every other horror prison you've already experienced.
But I mean, isn't that what genre filmmaking is? You use tropes, you use familiar settings. What else was he supposed to do?
That's a fair point. But I think the criticism in the source is that Stuckmann didn't sort of transform those influences. They just sit there, recognizable, maybe not integrated into something fresh.
Okay, like wearing your influences on your sleeve a bit too, obviously.
Perhaps. And then, of course, there are the jump scares.
Ah, yes. Always a point of contention. What did the review say about those?
It mentions Paranormal Activity style, scares things moving, sudden appearances. But the verdict was they become repetitive, predictable, and ultimately devoid of shock.
So they lose their impact.
Yeah, and worse, the reviewer says Stuckmann makes a classic mistake. He telegraphs them too much. Does way too much indicating of when they will arrive. The audience sees them coming a mile off.
Right, takes all the surprise out of it. I can kind of sympathize, though. If you love horror, you love certain things about it. Maybe putting all your favorite bits into your first film is just tempting.
It probably is very tempting, like making that ultimate horror mixtape.
Yeah, but maybe it ends up feeling like a Frankenstein's monster, like you said, stitched together.
That analogy gets even sharper when the review mentions a specific choice Stuckmann made, naming the area around the town Dark County.
Dark County. D-A-R-K-E.
Yep. And the reviewer apparently had a visceral reaction to that. A cringe.
Why cringe? What's wrong with Dark County? Sounds spooky.
It sounds very deliberate. The review suggests it screams ambition, like laying the groundwork for a whole cinematic universe, like Marvel or DC.
Ah, okay. Trying to build a franchise from film one.
Exactly. And the reviewer immediately compares that feeling to Universal's failed Dark Universe attempt back in 2017 with The Mummy.
Oh, right. That imploded spectacularly.
Yeah.
Not a comparison you want.
Definitely not. So the takeaway is that this name, this apparent franchise building, felt distracting and maybe a bit presumptuous rather than organic world building.
Okay, so the film shifts gears awkwardly, becomes derivative, relies on weak scares, and has maybe overly ambitious naming conventions. How does the review wrap things up? What's the final verdict?
It's pretty harsh, honestly. The review says the film hurries toward a conclusion that's both muddled and turgid.
Turgid, that means like swollen, bloated, right?
Yabby, messy, overly complicated, but not in a satisfying way. The ultimate failure, according to this review, is that there just wasn't a strong, original idea driving it all. Just that onslaught of tropes we talked about.
An onslaught of tropes. Wow.
But maybe the most striking critique, the one that really stands out, is this comparison the reviewer makes.
What is it?
They suggest Shelby Oaks gives a hint of what a fully AI movie might one day feel like.
Whoa, like generated by AI.
Yeah. Described as a mass of clichés molded into something resembling cinema, but falling uncannily short.
That is a deeply critical statement about creativity, saying it feels like an AI just scraped horror movies and assembled them.
It implies a lack of, a human soul or unique perspective behind it all. An AI can put the pieces together. Creepy witch, dark county, jump scare. But the why, the creative spark, is missing. Form without content. That's maybe the ultimate criticism of derivative work, isn't it?
Truly. And it makes another point in the review even sadder, actually.
Which one?
The personal connection. The review mentions reports that Stuckmann was partly inspired by something deeply personal, his sister's experience being excommunicated from the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, wow. That's potentially powerful stuff for a story.
Exactly. But the reviewer states that this personal motivation, it's impossible to see in the final product.
So it got lost somewhere between the idea and the screen.
Apparently. The review says it's not visible in the film's boilerplate depiction of grief or its trite evocations of the occult. The personal angle just didn't translate.
That is tragic. The very thing that might have made it unique was swallowed up by, maybe, the pressure to make a standard genre film.
It really raises that question for any critic who becomes a creator, doesn't it? How do you balance making something that works within a genre with telling your story?
Yeah. And the final bit of advice in the review is aimed squarely at that. It's quite direct.
What does it say?
The reviewer argues Stuckmann should have, quote, more sharply applied some of his critical faculties to his own work.
Use his critic brain on his own movie, basically.
Essentially, yeah. The idea is, if he had, maybe he could have made it stand out from all the films he's reviewed over the years. Instead, the review concludes, the film ended up as a, well, the phrasing is memorable, a lumbering golem of hyped-up pull quotes about other people's stuff.
A lumbering golem. Wow. That imagery is potent. A golem made of, what? Pieces of other movies?
That's the metaphor, yeah. Like an artificial creature built from parts, a bit of Hereditary, some found footage scares, the Sessionine atmosphere, the dark universe ambition, all stuck together. Maybe animated by hype, but lacking that essential spark of originality. The irony being its expert critic ended up making something that felt like a collection of parts he'd normally critique.
It's a tough assessment. So, summarizing the takeaways here from the Hollywood Reporter's perspective, it sounds like the big issues were the challenge of blending genres effectively, especially with that jarring mid-film shift.
Right. And that fine line, or maybe not so fine line in this case, between paying homage to your influences and just producing pastiche, relying too heavily on horror staples without transforming them.
Yeah. So for you, the listener, what we saw detailed here was a film that, according to this review, started promisingly with a known format, the mockumentary, but then kind of lost its way, collapsing into a collection of recognizable horror moments that didn't quite add up to a unique whole. The original vision just wasn't visible in the end product.
Mm-hmm. And that leads us perfectly into that final thought we wanted to leave you with.
Go for it.
We have this scenario. An expert reviewer, someone deeply knowledgeable about film craft, steps into the creator's chair. What does it really take to make that switch successfully? What kind of maybe mental shift or critical discipline is needed when you go from analyzing other people's art to creating your own from scratch?
It's that gap between knowing and doing, isn't it? Something definitely worth thinking about long after the credits roll.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.